Just some housekeeping items. If you have a question, you can just click on the Q&A button and enter the question in, and we'll handle those as we can get to them. This will not be a long meeting, uh, I don't believe, because the information that I wanted to share with you on the update in Louisiana is relatively short, with an appeal that we need to really redouble our efforts in order to communicate with the legislature there on the inevitable effort, by right now inevitable, of there being a ban unless we're able to convince members of the Louisiana House that amend the current ban bill by Senator Morris and replace the ban with a ban on synthetic or semi-synthetic and synthetic-like compounds that would address the adulteration issue, and where he's really put this into the kratom into the crosshairs. But let's kick off and just give you some background about what the genesis of this effort is in Louisiana. As everyone knows, this is the first serious threat that we've had for a ban in terms of its being ability to advance through the legislature. We've seen it happen in other states where they've attempted to do it, and we've always been able to work with the sponsors and with enough members of the legislature to offset those ban efforts. But this one, Senator Morris is completely unwilling to listen to any science. He's not willing to listen to any reasonable argument about the fact that he may be wrong. And what he has done is become essentially a tool for the Kratom Danger Awareness Group that has promoted a false narrative about what kratom is and what its effects are. And of course, they're trumpeting exactly what their trial attorney supporters are asking them to do. And unfortunately, Senator Morris has thrown himself into this fight, believing all of that nonsense. And you can go back and look at the testimony that was provided by Chris McCurdy, and then subsequently by Kirsten Smith and Jack Kenningfield, and none of that was something that Senator Morris was willing to consider. And in fact, he mocked them. In one occasion, he was saying, "Well, you're not really medical doctors; you're just PhDs." And Jack Kenningfield said, "That's true, but I train MDs in substance abuse work." And of course, Senator Morris didn't want to hear that. Another perfect example of where that illustrates how locked and loaded he is. Senator Morris made the comment in the hearing that the Mayo Clinic has conducted several studies on kratom, all of which show that kratom is dangerous. And when I pointed out to him that, in fact, the Mayo Clinic has not funded a single penny of independent kratom research, and all they do is repeat what the FDA says. I followed up in a letter to him where I outlined not only that there has been no research done by the Mayo Clinic, but in fact that they have a financial arrangement in a cooperative agreement in republishing FDA data with Yale University, with the Mayo Clinic, and the FDA. And the FDA pays them to do it. But he is unswayed by that, doesn't care about the facts. And so we are in a situation that's unique in that he is so locked and loaded that he likely is going to be able to stop any amendment that the House passes if we're able to persuade the House to do this. And that, of course, is our objective. So let me just outline what our ask is so that everyone is clear here in terms of what we need to do. We need to, in the next couple of days, redouble our effort in making phone calls and, importantly, sending emails. One of the comments by a couple of representatives talking to the various lobbying teams was that it was their observation that there weren't as many people emailing this year. Now, I think that's because we were emphasizing phone calls, but they apparently weren't making that distinction. So what we would like people to do, starting tonight, is to go on and email all of these members and encourage them to accept amendments to the ban bill, Senate Bill 154 by Senator Morris, and regulate kratom as opposed to banning it, to actually regulate the the dangerous substances, which in this case are the synthetic, semi-synthetic, and synthetic-like compounds of the kratom plant, which never should be called kratom, but which are responsible for the adverse events, the serious adverse events that are associated with kratom on this. So that's the ask. Our backs are against the wall, and we've got to do everything we can. The strategy that's being deployed in Louisiana and the House right now is that we're hoping that to get a couple of amendments placed and they would be accepted by the House, either one or more of them, that would simply state that it is replacing the ban on kratom to a ban on the synthetic-like, and the semi-synthetic compounds. And then there's another amendment that will limit the amount that will allow for pure leaf kratom and would allow for a certain number of milligrams per serving size. The AK is not a supporter of that approach, but it's one that's being shopped by another group in the legislature. And if they succeed in that, it certainly would be better than a ban. But we think that the consumers have spoken clearly in the marketplace about the kratom products they prefer, and there is no safety data that currently would support the low level of metrogeny that would be allowed in a product as is being recommended in this particular amendment, which is 50 milligrams per product, per serving rather. So it's a little complicated, but from a strategic standpoint, it'll be interesting to see what appeals to legislators and if we're able to get one of these amendments added onto it. The reality is that if it goes over to the Senate, then Senator Morris is unlikely, because we've already pitched him through our lobbying teams there on the ground in Baton Rouge, pitched him on accepting amendments. He's refused. And so it's very likely that he would not accept the amendments if the House passed them. And then the question would be is whether the House is willing to say, well, then we're a no-go, and that bill would die because they couldn't get consensus. Our lobbyists report that Senator Morris is using every bit of his political capital on this bill, and that he is going to leverage what essentially is a threat to the House members that he'll retaliate. And that's really unfortunate because it's part of the tools that some legislators use, but it's not one that makes for good public policy. So we are hopeful that as we start this process, that and it will take place over the next couple of days. The bill was up for second reading in the House today, which means that it gets to third reading. It'll now be scheduled in the next couple of days for a third reading in the House. That's when amendments can be placed by House members along the way. So that's our goal and what we're really trying to do. I'm going to go through a couple of the questions here, and then we can see if we've teased out exactly what we need to do here going forward. Adam asked, if kratom is banned in Louisiana, will have any reach over effects in other states. Texas would have, for example. Well, it could. It obviously has been a very important narrative up until now for us to be able to report to legislators that there hasn't been a ban enacted by a state since Rhode Island did it in 2017. Now, this year, we fully expect that Rhode Island, unless something really dramatic happens, is going to repeal their ban and replace it with a KCPA. So in that sense, it's a bit of a trade-off, but not great for our narrative. And it's a great point, Adam. In Texas, the soup is cooked. Today was the deadline for in this case, Senator Perry's bill to get a hearing before the House Public Health Committee, and it was not on the agenda. So absent an extraordinary procedural effort by Senator Perry in Texas, which is unlikely to be successful for a variety of reasons, the Texas ban bill, or the constructive ban bill, is essentially dead. So I think that's sort of where we are. Heidi makes the point that Louisiana advocates have said they're afraid to speak out because after the 2023 ban, they were targeted by the police. They were followed, and police even parked by their houses. How can we protect advocates from that harassment? Well, I don't know if those reports are accurate, Heidi, but if they are, then we certainly would organize an effort around the fact that there has been political retaliation in this kind of situation. I don't think that it's possible for law enforcement to sustain any kind of an effort like that, which would suppress the free speech rights of any advocate. But I think for this moment, we got to reassure people that this fight is important and that we will help if there are any retaliatory tactics that are followed up afterwards. Um, this is a difficult issue, but one that we have to just simply have to go forward. So that ban attempt that occurred back in 2023 was obviously one that we were able to win on. But I had not heard until you just raised it about potential fear that advocates have that they can weigh in and they need to. And if so many of them do, it would be extremely difficult for the police to exercise any kind of effort like that. Michael asks, are there any plans for gathering a peaceful protest in Louisiana? Because of the short timeline that's involved here, it's not an easily organized event, and one that our lobbying teams of all three organizations working on this have elected that because we don't know exactly when it's going to take place in the next couple of days, likely not a feasible thing for us to do, but every individual ought to be weighing in as best they can with phone calls and with emails. Anthony asked, would an email from a non-resident still have impact? Yes. They need to know that there are implications for decisions that they're being made, and that it has far-reaching impacts across the country when these kinds of ban decisions are made. Taylor asked, can you give me a specific time on when we will know if it's banned or not? Uh, Taylor's been fearing this for days now. I've sent emails, posted my story. I'm not sure what else you can do. If you call and just go through the list of legislators that you can get to, that would be useful too. Depending on how this bill is passed will determine whether or not when it takes effect. Could be as early as July, from what I understand, but it likely would be a couple months after that. Um, Adam asked, just to confirm, even if the House accepts, he can still shut it down. I'm not a hopeless type of person. I go down fighting, but that right there makes it feel hopeless. What I said was that even if the House accepts, Senator Morris can say, I'm not accepting your amendment. And then it's up to the House to decide whether they're going to live with his ban, or they're going to say, well, in that case, then we're not going to approve the ban. And if they pass an amendment, they would have every right to do so, and that bill would die, and that's just one of those things that is going on. Bobby makes the point that the Louisiana Department of Health is advising them to ban. Uh, Obviously, an executive agency of the government has impact. The Louisiana Department of Health is simply wrong. The very same criteria for scheduling that exists in Louisiana is an exact match to what the federal scheduling is. And I pointed this out to the representative, the assistant director of the Louisiana Department of Health, and his cavalier attitude was, well, we can ban it and then come back later if you're right. Well, I'm right that you cannot schedule it, because if they could, they would do it federally. And it was what Dr. Joie called embarrassingly poor evidence and data, and a failure to consider the overall public health. But you have this bias that has been inflamed by Senator Morris down there with the Louisiana Department of Health. And even they did a study on kratom, and they didn't say anything definitive along the way. How do we word our plea to legislators in our emails? We are asking them to accept the amendment that would ban adulterated and synthetic products. That's our ask, and we hope that they'll accept that rather than a ban. Charlotte asked, we know which House members are willing to bring forth the amendments on the House floor. All of the lobbyists are working hard, and I think there's probably about 10 or 12 lobbyists working on this right now. All of them are working hard to identify legislators. This is tough because Senator Morris has a lot of clout. They've got to be willing to stand up, and we're recruiting them as fast as we can. It's going to be a tough thing going forward. Jeff asked about the non-residents. Absolutely, you ought to weigh in. Cody asked, are there any particular House members that we should appeal that might bring about the best results here? Every House member is a target for us because it's going to be a floor vote. It's not like a committee member. It's easier to get them on a committee basis, but this one was cooked, and so we got to appeal on the House floor. Jordan Mixon says, I've seen a few discussions that raise the idea that the AKs negative comments pointing to 7-hydroxymetriogenine extract products as the cause of kratom-related issues. Do you think that opinion holds any water? Also, why does the AKA disapprove of these products and want to ban rather than regulate them so they are properly labeled and their strength standardized? First, the AKA's position on extracts is that if they use FDA-approved food-grade solvents, they are fine because you can't increase the potency of the alkaloid metriogenine sufficiently to create any kind of a problem. If you are using solvents that are not food grade that can increase that potency, we oppose concentrated, super concentrated products. We only oppose 7-hydroxymetriogenine because the advocates for 7-OH products stood before a summit meeting that we held in Miami in January, and their scientists said we don't have any evidence to determine that 7-OH is safe, but we're working on it. And they were relying on outdated, completely unrelated, and incomplete science in order to justify. So, the Jourdain, respectfully, there's not a position that anyone can take that these products should not be banned. And we have consistently maintained at the AKA that we support good science. And right now the science is there. And by the way, the other groups, including the global, the Global Kratom Coalition and the Botanicals for Better Health and Wellness, agree that 7-OH products should be banned until they're able to demonstrate their science. Stephen asked if there's anything we should specifically refer to or a language we should use to request amendments. If we've already emailed the past few days, shall we mail or call again? Yes. And this time your message should be accept the amendment that will be offered on the floor to ban synthetic, semi-synthetic, and synthetic-like compounds, the adulterated kratom products. That's what we want to do. Kenny says it's not political retaliation people are concerned about. They are worried the police are going to target people for possession of kratom because it would be Schedule 1. There are 325,000 people in Louisiana that currently consume kratom products. I think that's too large of a number. I understand the concern about it, but I don't think it holds a lot of water here. And people need to stand up here and fight against what is obviously the very bad construct that's being advocated for by a anti-kratom group funded by trial lawyers who are just trying to do in all kratom for their own benefit. So I think that's where we have to stay on message. Dustin says he doesn't mean to sound conspiratorial, but are we sure they will not retaliate? This is the South. I get it. I understand. And it is possible, but we will be behind the community if we are able to identify any retaliatory actions. And by the way, if that will only happen if we win, and then that win is a big win, and then we'll be able to marshal people and get support, and we'll be able to fight this battle appropriately if we win this going forward. There's no targeting of anyone if it's banned along the way, because obviously you would have to. You're not going to be purchasing products in Louisiana, and that issue diminishes significantly. Lloyd asked, would it help if any person like me, who's not a Louisiana resident, and letting them know how much kratom has helped? Yes. Make those phone calls, send your email, tell your story. In your emails, you don't have to describe exactly where you're from. Just tell them how important it's been, and so I think that's pretty significant along the way. Jourdain then clarifies, I didn't finish my first sentence. I meant to say that the discussion said that AK's negative comment on these products have harmed our chances of defeating the ban. I don't understand that, Jourdain. I can tell you that the choice here was one that Senator Morris set up, and that was that he didn't care about the good products. He only cared about the bad products, and that he couldn't sort them out. And it was not the AKA's negative comment about 7-OH. It is scientists' negative comments about 7-OH. And you listen to what Senator Morris says. He targets those bad products, and that's the basis for his ban. And the only reason he's including everything is because under his rubric of the argument, he's suggesting that you cannot tell the difference between them. And he knows that there are people that are benefiting from kratom. He knows that there are good kratom products, but he believes that everybody's a drug seeker that uses kratom. And frankly, That's why he's targeting all of this, and he's not going to make a distinction along the way. Laura says she's recorded her testimony on her computer and had it ready to play if the office didn't pick up. That's great. This helped to make over 80 calls possible. That's a great idea because if you get onto the call and you get voicemail, then you can just simply play that thing. I think that's what we're doing. So what's the story with Texas from Google Pixel 6a? Uh, the bill that was passed by the Senate, which is, in our opinion, a constructive ban on kratom because of the limitations on the kratom products that can be available and where they can be sold. They essentially deny everyone access to kratom, except in very limited circumstances. That bill, unless there is an amazing resurrection of it, currently is dying. It did not get a hearing before the House Committee on Public Health. It needs to have committee action in order to get to the floor. And so, unless Senator Perry in Texas does something miraculous, he's simply not going to make it. He could amend it to another bill, but that still requires the House to vote on it, and we just don't see that's going to happen. Kamal says that one of my large distributors has not reordered and says that 98% of their revenue is now 7-hydroxy. Given the market, how do you suggest small kratom businesses to move forward? Fight. Fight like banshees on this. This is why we've got to fight against this. The reason that 7-hydroxy is capturing a larger market share is because as they advertised and marketed their product at the Champ show that I attended, and I walked up to one of their booths and I said, "What's the difference between kratom and 7-hydroxy?" They're not knowing who I am. And the fellow behind, and this was consistent, different language on each one of them, said 7OH will knock you on your ass. Well, that's exactly what people are experiencing, and that's why you're seeing that this stuff is going on. So I think that currently our objective has got to be to fight as hard as we can in order to convince the House to accept an amendment to this ban bill, and let's see how it plays out. Glenn asks, there's obviously a financial reason between the three, Kratom Awareness Group, the attorney, and the Morris. I'm confused as to who benefits who and how. Well, Senator Morris has accepted the notion that kratom is killing people. And that, of course, is the narrative being espoused by the Kratom Danger Awareness Group that are funded by the trial attorneys. And they want that narrative out there because that means more lawsuits for them. So I think that this is the difficult issue that we have to face, is that we're educating legislators on what the truth is, which is that it's what the FDA says, it's what the National Institutes on Drug Abuse says, it's what the Secretary of Health and Human Services says, is that kratom deaths are rare, and when they do occur, it's because of adulterated products or polydrug use. That's the situation and reality of it, and that's why it can't be scheduled at the federal level, because the science is what it is. Melanie reaffirms we're out of the woods in Texas now. I think I've explained that as best as we can be. With fingers crossed, we're in a situation that is pretty darn good in Texas. Nothing is completed until they adjourn, which is in another week and a half, I think. Jordan says, makes a comment. Thanks for clarifying. 7H, something I'm really on the fence about. Wouldn't be too sad to see it banned. Absolutely, we can show that. You would appreciate a link to the meeting in Miami. We can share with you a transcript of the statements by the scientists from 7OH. We're glad to do that, and we'll send that along to you if you'll just send a request to I think it's info at americankratom.org. I think that will get to it, and we'll get this. Kenny asked us to put the video up when we're finished. We'll do that, and you can circulate it. And this is where we're headed along the way. Drag this 2006 wants to know the update for Texas. I think you've already heard it, but if not, you can watch the video when we post this up on our YouTube channel. Michael asked, should my email to Louisiana just be my testimonial, or should I include persuading KCPA regulation or science about 7OH? I'm thinking about including Marshall Price story and what happens when you criminalize arrest. All that's great, and I think your email should be replace the ban with a regulation, ban 7OH, ban I'm sorry, the synthesized products, and you can tell your story. And if you want to describe what happens with Marshall Price, I think that's fine. Um, Tim asks, how do we know that Big Pharma is not influencing this? There's no one way or another, no way to prove that. Currently the 7OH has got a lot. I'm sorry, the Big Pharma's got a lot of fish to fry, bigger than kratom. So I think they're not really uh, they're really not in the right line here to be worried about at this point. But we watch it all of the time, and we'll certainly alert you. Kenny says, actually, Morris states emphatically there is no such thing as synthetic kratom. Well, Kenny, this is the truth. Senator Morris is wrong. He was wrong throughout that hearing. His dismissive attitude towards scientists, some of the world's best, about kratom shows you where he is. He's not being rational about this. And we're not going to win any battle with him. He's not going to be persuaded. We just have to keep fighting. And Morris has made up his mind. And the fact that he says there's no such thing as a bad or a good kratom product or synthetic, he thinks all of it's bad. And while he makes a general acknowledgement, even for powder, he testified in the House committee when asked about could we have a level of just pure leaf. He said, no, you can boil it down, you can concentrate it. So and that's not the way it works, but that's what he believes. And so that's our problem that things are going on. Can HB 253 do anything at this point to diffuse 154? No. Unfortunately, we're locked into a appropriations committee with a fiscal note problem, and so I think it's a real problem for us. Uh, let's see, Jordan say, what is the AK's plan to fight back if the Texas bill dies? Assume we have another 2 years till the next ban attempt. That gives us quite some time to regroup in Texas. Jordan, you're absolutely right. We're working with a number of strategies that will eliminate the possibility that Senator Perry will have any ground to work on in the next legislative session in Texas. So it's something that we're working on as we go forward here. And let's see, Bobby just asked about 253. It's stuck due to the fiscal note. I think that we're going to have to reconfigure our approach in Louisiana. This was a deliberate effort by the Department of Health to stick a high fiscal note on it, and we're going to have to address that if we get through this in another way. Dustin said, do you find it strange how some states like to abhor federal intrusion, yet ironically, they believe everything the feds say about substance policy? It's a great point, Dustin. But if Louisiana were truly following the feds, they would see that there's no basis. They're following the FDA, and the FDA has an inherent bias against kratom, despite their own scientific data. So that's a little bit of a problem, and so that's really difficult. Sword asks, what's the deal with Dr. Henningfield and James Carroll working with Hart? It's a great question. I can't speak for them. I can tell you that in conversations that I have had with Dr. Henningfield, he is simply interested in the science behind 7OH. He is not advocating for them. My understanding is that he does not accept their claims that there is sufficient safety for their products. And so there's that. James Carroll, I think, has left his law firm and is working on a career change. I've not yet heard from him what that's going to be, but I think he has a similar libertarian view, not necessarily promoting 7OH, but just operating on the premise that if they can produce the science that justifies market entry, then they can, and we support that too. But we called out the Hart Group and said, "Where's your science?" And they couldn't produce it. So I think that that's very disappointing that that's the way things are going on this along the way. Let's see. Walter asked, "What about online ordering? How would the Louisiana ban affect that?" Well, it's very difficult for them to monitor that, but they would ban it. And if you have possession of kratom, you would have the fine that's associated with it. They're not the strongest fines that you would have for controlled substances, but they're still onerous. They do criminalize people along the way. Kenny asked, how likely they to push this through tomorrow on the House floor? Really quickly, or do we have a few days? hard to say. Once it's through the second reading, they can call it up for third reading anytime. So we have to be prepared to start now as we hang up here, and let's push through until they call it. And we're hopeful that that it's going to be a couple of days, but we don't know. And we just got to assume that this is a fight that we have to start tonight and keep pushing until we get word one way or another. Steve asked whether I've recovered from the pneumonia. I'm struggling with it. Pneumonia is over, but I also have very difficult seasonal allergies, and so I've been really struggling along the way. But thank you for the concern for my health. I know Heidi has been hitting on me pretty hard to make sure that I'm on the proper medications for the seasonal allergies, which whack me all the time. And also very allergic to dogs. And I was on planes down to Baton Rouge, and there was a service dog, and there's nothing I can do about that. And that kind of put me in a tailspin as well. But I'm in there fighting, and we're going to continue uh, where we are. Um, Kenny said, my concern, they're going to try to rush this through for final floor vote tomorrow. They might, uh, but there's no way that we know how that scheduling works. So we just hope against hope we get a couple more days along the way. Bobby asked, is that third reading? My understanding was they were going to vote on it today. I have not received a confirmation. We'll check on that, but let's assume that it is and they're ready to go. We just need to get these out as we go forward. Kamal says, as business in Texas, if I were to keep selling for Louisiana, do we know what the worst would be for my company in Texas? Um, if you're Texas based, and we're not going to see any kind of significant alteration of Texas in this legislative session, as we hope. So we're going to keep fighting on that. But if you're selling in Louisiana and if it's banned, then of course you would have a problem. So you're going to be subject to their laws. There, Bobby just confirmed that it was passed by title at the third reading. So um, it is done, and now we just got to fire away with all the emails along the way. Um, yeah, I am on Zytec D, and I'm also on Flonase for these allergies. So thank you. So that's it. I think we've answered these questions. If you have, uh, we'll put this up on our YouTube channel at American Kratom Association, and we just will continue to fight on this. Pym asked the question: would a Louisiana ban affect shipping through the state, or is there a safe harbor? That I don't know the answer to. I'm going to find out, Pym, and we'll get back to you because that's an interesting question. I know there's been some concern about interstate shipping through a banned state, but I think it's an open question. We'll find out, check with our attorneys, and I'll let you know. So thanks everyone for joining. We deeply appreciate the concern. The fact there's more than 100 people on here, and it's also being live streamed on other channels. So this is great. Let's marshal the forces. Let's rally. Let's fight back, and let's do everything we can in order to tell this Louisiana legislature that there is a better option here. And let's start with banning the synthetic and adulterated products, and then let's go to a reasonable regulatory scheme that we think is embraced in the Kratom Consumer Protection Act as we go forward. So that message, along with all of your fantastic efforts that you have put on, are deeply appreciated. And we're going to be in there fighting with you as we go through this. So thanks, everyone. Appreciate your time.